Hello, manic.mercurian here with another birth chart reading. This one is for Saturday, November 28th, 1998 at 7:23 p.m. in Ciudad Juarez, Mexico. I'm sure I didn't pronounce that correctly, but you get it. You know what I'm saying. So let's take a look at your chart. This will be kind of fun because I just pulled this up. I haven't looked at this at all, so I'll take a moment to just take everything in here. But okay, so you have Sun in Sagittarius, Moon in Aries at the top of the chart here, very prominent, and then Cancer rising. So right off the bat, both the luminaries are in fire signs, so that's pretty powerful. You're a fiery person. You've got some charisma and energy, maybe some impulsiveness, some charisma. Fire signs we all kind of idolize, I guess. Like a lot of the celebrities and actors are all fire signs because they're so animated, they're so relatable. They have that youthful energy. They're so active and engaging and engaged with their environment. And especially, you are in particular, you don't have any planets in Leo. You've got your North Node there, so we'll talk about that later. Um, but your Sun, as well as you actually have four planets all in Sagittarius, and then you've got Moon and Saturn in Aries. So a lot of your personality is weighted in these two signs of Sagittarius and Aries. And of the three fire signs, that would be Sagittarius, Aries, and Leo. Sagittarius and Aries are the less stable of the three. Leo is fixed fire, so it's more stable, more, consistent, um, more stubborn. Sagittarius and Aries, they can be stubborn because they're so passionate about what they believe in, so you're probably a very passionate person, but these are the less stable signs, but as a result of that, they're also very adventurous. Both Sagittarius and Aries have to do with, pioneering, going into new environments or new fields. They're really great at that. You can kind of just throw them into a new environment or with new people, and they're really excellent at kind of adapting to these new situations. And I don't know, kind of just tumbling through the rough, I guess, and figuring things out on the fly. They're really great. Both these sons are really great at that. So I would expect you to be kind of the ultimate pioneer or adventurer. You're also very kind of sensitive and emotional. Now, that's for multiple reasons. Fire signs are very passionate. You know, I I would say that fire and water are the more emotional elements, and you do have a lot of fire planets here. This is a very fiery chart. It's the most fiery chart I've read in a while, actually. So yeah, you probably are a little bit more on the emotional side because, like I said, you're very passionate about what you believe in and your thoughts and feelings. But not only that, you have Cancer rising. Your ascendant is in Cancer. Cancer is the sign of emotion. It's the most emotional sign. So having your rising there, it means that not only your approach and your mannerisms may be sort of Cancerian, and I'll talk more about what that means in just a moment, but also the ascendant has a lot to do with our life themes and our life purpose. What did we come here to learn, etc. So being in Cancer, that signifies that you came here to learn about emotion. You came here to learn about particularly your own emotions. How do you feel about things? You're probably already very self aware in that regard. You know how you feel, I would say, most times, especially with Moon and Aries. You feel very strongly, and it's very kind of clear cut and black and white. So that part you've got down. You know how you feel. But I think you can feel so emotionally intense at times, being a Cancer rising, the most emotional rising, but also having that Moon in Aries at the top of the chart. I said that's very prominent. So you have intense emotions. And this is a strength and a challenge as well. There's everything comes with a pro and a con. Um, the con is that it can be hard to manage that level of intensity of emotion. You're so passionate about things. You're so invested. When you do something, your ego and your heart is really put into what you're doing, and so there's a certain level of seriousness with that, and also vulnerability. And you're good at being vulnerable. You're good at kind of throwing yourself out there and initiating, being so fiery. But still, it can be difficult at times, and that's something that takes time to learn. Just how to cope with that level of intensity and emotion. That's a big part of what you came here to learn, is to experience that emotion and that passion, and learn how to not only cope with it, but manage it and I almost said weaponize it, but that's not the word I'm looking for. To use it, kind of, I think it's too easy for us to run away from our emotions if it doesn't feel comfortable or what have you. But really, that's where a lot of, intelligence, wisdom, and power lies is in our emotion. There's value there. There's a lot of substance there. It's a gift to have these kind of strong emotions, as long as we're utilizing them. So yeah, that's a lot of kind of what your life mission and your purpose here is. Um, I think also with so much fire energy, you can kind of get lost in your own emotions sometimes because fire is sort of self-oriented and Cancer rising is mostly like predominantly focused on um, its own emotions. Like it's definitely very um, like being Cancer rising, like you probably are very loyal with your friends and family. Friendship is important to you, family is important to you. So you're very, you like to have strong bonds with people, especially if you're in a romantic relationship. You like to, be really close. You like to have that partnership, that loyalty. So I'm not trying to say that you're, selfish and you only care about yourself at all. I think you're judging by your chart, you'd be a very passionate person, you'd be a very loyal person. Um, you know, those relationships in your life are extremely important to you, I would think, for sure. But at the same time, I think you can kind of get, wrapped up in your own emotions or in your own head. Especially with all your Sagittarius placements, you probably have a very active imagination. So that too is a is a pro and a con. It's excellent to feel so strongly and to have a vivid imagination, to be so creative and spontaneous. Um, but at the same time, I think you can kind of get worked up or get lost in your own head. There's a certain level of intensity that comes with the fire sign, so sometimes um, you can maybe feel too serious about things just because like I said, your ego is very strong. You have that investment in everything you do, and yeah, so that's yeah, interesting energies going on here. Let me just kind of jump around a bit. So I'm not really done talking about this stellium and Sagittarius. You have Sun, Pluto, Mercury, and Venus all in Sagittarius. So that's pretty interesting. Let's unpack that. Now, I would separate these into two conjunctions, even though they're all kind of close. I wouldn't say all four of them are conjunct. I would say Sun and Pluto are conjunct at 6 and 7 degrees Sagittarius, and then Mercury and Venus are conjunct with one another at 12 and 14 degrees Sagittarius. Um, let's see. So there's a lot to unpack right there. Hmm. Let's do Sun conjunct Pluto first. So this adds some kind of intensity, magnetism, and like mysteriousness to your personality. It means that you kind of naturally keep things secret sometimes, and you probably don't even intend to, or maybe you do. I guess no one really knows because it's a secret. But but Pluto conjunct Sun, it almost makes you a little bit like a Scorpio. So if you're familiar, I don't know exactly how familiar you are with astrology, but Scorpios are known to be kind of intense and mysterious, and I would say it's astrology's favorite sign because everyone loves how mysterious and complex they are, or what have you. So you would have some of that allure. Now you don't have any planets in Scorpio, but Pluto has strong connections with Scorpio, and having Pluto conjunct your Sun combines the energies of Pluto with your Sun, and Sun is your general identity, your ego, a lot of your expression. It's who you are during the day with friends, acquaintances, etc. So all of that, pretty strong part of your personality is combined with Pluto, so it makes you kind of intense, or it makes you seem intense at times. Um, but I would say this is a generally positive thing. People view you as someone to be respected, or someone because there's almost like an allure there. People don't know what's going on in your head, and so they're attracted to that. There's a that magnetism or mysteriousness. There's power in that too. Pluto has to do with power, so people view you as being powerful, and this is something that I don't think you would even have to try to do. This kind of just is a natural thing about you that people view you as, I don't know, mysterious and powerful. So that's interesting. That's kind of fun. Um, let's see what else here. So one last thing about that, it could also indicate themes of transformation. So you could have like, very intense transformations throughout your life whenever your Sun Pluto conjunction is aspected or triggered. Um, yeah, you could have sudden, really large transformations from your core. Like, so your core identity would undergo these huge transformations maybe multiple times throughout your life. Um, Oh, but let me just talk in general. Sagittarius is a really happy-go-lucky sign. So having these four planets there, you're generally very open, you're adventurous, especially combining with your moon in Aries. Um, you would be very open to the world, especially with the Cancer rising. People just find you very approachable. And with your Aries moon, you come across as very innocent and I wouldn't say naive, but you come across as very innocent and endearing, and people, I would think, just kind of naturally trust you. Um, you would be a tiny bit subdued with your Saturn and Aries. This means that you're very hard on yourself. You have high standards and can even be kind of down on yourself, especially at a young age, because you just this will take time for you. On the one hand, you have a strong ego. You have like such fiery energy and charisma, and you believe in yourself, and but Sagittarius can go up and down. Sagittarius almost is kind of like a roller coaster mentality, especially combining with the Aries moon and Cancer rising. So you can feel on top of the world sometimes, and you feel, so maybe cocky at times. You're so charismatic, everyone likes you, everything's going well, and you have such big dreams too. That's part of it. You get so inspired. And so you can get your hopes up, and everything's going really awesome for a while. And then the problem is that you get your hopes too high and then you're let down and then you can just totally crash and be in the dumps and be totally down on yourself. Maybe feel like you hate yourself or something. But then pretty soon you're back on your feet again and you're ready to try again. So there's this up and down quality to your chart, I would say. This is really strong with Sagittarius, but like I said, it's kind of reinforced with Aries and Cancer. These are emotional signs and they're not particularly consistent. Um, but this will naturally you'll naturally gain a lot of emotional intelligence from this. So, at first it can just feel unstable and feel like a problem, but through those kind of cycles, through as you experience those range of emotions, you will learn from all that. There's value in those experiences, and so especially by the time you get a little bit older, um, I would say this would lead to immense wisdom. I really mean that. There's a lot of wisdom that comes with these fiery emotional energies. Um, so yeah. So anyway, so maybe emotionally unstable at a younger age, but that same instability leads to wisdom and self-awareness. So this will be something that kind of mellows out as you get a little bit older and kind of learn about yourself and how to utilize your emotions and such. But anyway, going back. Oh, actually, I have so many thoughts. I'm so scattered right now. But I was saying that Saturn and Aries means that okay, so wherever Saturn is, it's something that's very challenging for us. That we don't inherit whatever Saturn is ruling over in our charts. We have to work very hard for it. We have to work hard for it, and it takes time. And it's something that we don't really master until later in life. For you, Saturn is an Aries. Aries rules kind of the ego, the identity, self-awareness, self-image. And so for you, all these things that involve your own self-image, your self-esteem, and such will be very hard at a young age. You're very hard on yourself, and this is, I would say, one of the more difficult Saturn placements. Saturn is in fall here, meaning that it's like debilitated, or ancient people would say that you're like cursed. This is like a cursed placement. I wouldn't say it's cursed though. It is one of the more challenging placements. It's something that's, like I said, very challenging young in life because you can feel hard on yourself, you can feel down on yourself, but you have high standards, and after time, just give yourself time and you will learn to live up to your own high standards. And the result is typically, ideally, that it makes a really great person later in life. You will gain this really strong, stable sense of identity but it's something that you have to work for, like I said, and it's something that takes time. But once you gain that, you'll have this like true confidence. Saturn rewards us when we are responsible for ourselves and put in the work and the time. So once you do that, you learn that to gain that responsibility and you put in the time and the work into this, which will just happen naturally, I think. Um, Later in life, especially after your late 20s when you go through your Saturn return, then you will kind of have this really strong inner confidence. And this, of course, you have free will. You don't have to do this, but that's one trajectory. That's one likelihood, I would say. So this is really challenging, especially early on, but I think it's a really blessed placement later in life. Um, and this affects your career as well. Saturn is at the top of your chart right here in the 10th house. 10th house rules our career and public image. It's the same with your career. Your sorry, your career will be maybe kind of slow to get moving when you're younger. It'll be maybe more challenging, and you'll experience challenges at a young age in the public sphere. Challenges at work. So you may have very low moments or I don't know, really difficult challenges in public or at work at a young age. But again, this is all just something that takes time and that you will learn to master. And once you're, especially by the time you get into your 30s, you'll have a much better handle on this and have a really strong uh, public image and career. Okay, let's jump around back to the Sagittarius placements though. Um, So you have a lot on your plate with Sagittarius. Sagittarius is a mutable sign, so it transitions from fall to winter. It's the last fall sign, so it, wraps up fall and alludes to winter. But Sagittarius has a lot on their plate, so this is a sign that's very optimistic and perseverant and very adaptable, very passionate. And Sagittarius, in astrology, Sagittarius is ruled by its imagery is the centaur, and it's the only sign that's ruled by a creature that is half human and half beast. And all the signs that are um, symbolized with animals are more emotional in nature, more instinctive, more intuitive, and all the signs that are symbolized with humans are more intellectual, so more cerebral, more thinkers. Um, But Sagittarius is the only sign that is both. You have, a creature that is half human, half animal. So you kind of have all of it. And so this too is a blessing and a curse. It's really awesome to be well-rounded and to be, you're intellectual but also very instinctive and emotional. So you have, really strong thoughts but also really strong feelings too. Um, so that's awesome. You can kind of you can use that to your advantage and fit in with many different kinds of people. Um, and this is all gearing you up to be. Sagittarius's main theme is exploring the world and just having as many experiences as it can, just for the sake of having experience and gaining the wisdom that comes from experiences. And so this is all part of just building you up to be capable of exploring the world. You're meant to be an explorer of some sort. Um, so yeah, you're a thinker and a feeler, and that's awesome that you can have all of that. You have it all, but at the same time, it's very challenging to manage all of that in one person. You're to be an intellectual, but also very emotional and passionate, to be creative. And I say Sagittarius, in my opinion, would be the best sign for celebrities, just um, because they often have musical ability. They're very passionate and whatever they do, they like to be the best at, so they can be kind of competitive and they're usually very skilled people. They have some hobbies that they want to be the best at, so they delve all the way into it. They want to go all the way and master whatever they do. And yeah, a lot of times they do have musical ability, not always, but oh, and then they're also just very charismatic. They're very endearing to people. So yeah, it's an interesting dynamic sign. It's one of my personal kind of subjective favorites. Um, but let's cover your Venus Mercury conjunction. Now this is interesting because Mercury was actually retrograde when you were born, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. Um, but this means that, Venus actually passed Mercury as Mercury was going retrograde. So that's kind of unusual. Usually Mercury travels faster than Venus, so we might expect Mercury maybe to pass Venus. But no, in this case, Mercury was going backward. So they passed each other very quickly, actually, just before you were born. So what does this mean? So this means Mercury rules your intellect, your communication, your thinking, how you think, your learning, and Venus rules kind of your approach to relationships and desire and attractiveness. How are you attractive? How do you attract what you want, etc. And so because they're conjunct, they are 2 degrees away. Two and a half or 1.5 degrees away. But still, they're close enough that I would say they're conjunct, so their energies are more or less combined, unified, just like Pluto is with your Sun. And so for you, you would combining Mercury and Venus is pretty powerful. It means that you communicate and think in a way that is attractive to other people. So the way you speak is, I don't know, elegant or it's pleasant. People enjoy just listening to you talk, I would think, from this conjunction. What else? Or you might have writing ability. Now, the funny thing is, though, that Mercury is retrograde and in detriment. It's in detriment in Sagittarius, so this is also a challenging placement. It's something that takes time to adapt to and to learn to master. So, Mercury in Sagittarius is not initially how do I phrase this? So Mercury is how you think, and it's in detriment, so it's challenged. This doesn't mean that you aren't good at thinking. It just means that you think in a way that is unusual or unexpected. So you may have a hard time, learning language at a younger age, or especially like written language. Like Sagittarius is a very physical sign. It is intellectual, but it's also very physical, especially with your Aries moon. You really want to like physically experience things. You do have a vivid imagination. You can be very creative, but you want to like physically, experience things. Like I keep moving my hands, like you want to touch things with your hands. So I think especially at a young age, you could be diagnosed with a learning disability, or it might be hard to learn language, especially, or anything with kind of like detail. And again, it's not because you're not smart, it's just because you learn in a way that's different than, the norm, especially what's taught in schools. Like for instance, if they want you to do a math problem and you have to do the math problem exactly the way they do, that might be difficult for you because you may just instinctively know the answer, or you may have maybe a different way of going around it, going about it. Um, and also, this applies to, you'd be open to ideas that other people would not be open to. Again, you kind of think out of the box. You're offbeat from the quote unquote normal way of thinking. And this too, it's not a good thing or a bad thing necessarily. There's pros and cons to it. The con would be that it's hard to be on the same page as everyone else. Things that other people may find easy to learn may be difficult for you, and things that may be difficult for other people are easy for you. This also makes you very creative, though. You could be a kind of dreamer, very intuitive. Retrograde placements are more internal and more creative and intuitive. So having Mercury retrograde, especially in detriment, just makes you kind of outside of the box. So you're really great at, um, I don't know, like taking apart a machine and just seeing how all the parts go together. You could also be good at, if you're watching a movie, you already kind of know where everything is gonna go because your intuition is really strong. Um, so yeah, again, I just want to make it clear that, it's not if you have a trouble like learning something, it's not because you're not smart. It's just, this is actually a kind of genius placement because you have your unique own way of thinking. Um, it's just not in line with, the mainstream or old school way of thinking, if you will. So yeah, really, a lot of richness in these placements, so pretty interesting. Okay. Um, okay. Last thing, so I'm going to talk about your general personality just a little bit more, and then I'll delve into relationships. Um, all right, so you have your Mars at 0 degrees Libra. Um, you also have your descendant or your South node at 25 degrees Aquarius. So, okay. So combining both of these, it means that even though you are fiery, you are passionate, you can actually be pretty detached at times, especially in your childhood. So, okay, this is interesting. I'm kind of jumping around here. So let's talk about your childhood. And for the childhood and your upbringing, where you come from, I would look to two things mostly: the South Node and the IC. IC is this little black triangle here, so it's always at the bottom or around the bottom of your chart, exactly opposite the midheaven, which is MC. So IC has to do a lot with your childhood. It would mean that as a child, you're almost kind of like a Virgo. So you may have been very curious, very intellectual. You wanted to learn, and many people with IC Virgo grow up like they read a lot as a child, or they just want to learn. They're very curious. Now, I know this is a little bit contradictory because I said that you may have had kind of a learning disability, but at the same time, at a young age, you were very academic. You wanted to learn. So I'm not sure exactly how that would go, just looking at your chart. Um, you look very intelligent, very curious, very open to things, especially at a young age. Especially with your South Node in Aquarius, you'd be very almost like mature as a child because the traits that people mostly associate with children don't really resonate with South Node and Aquarius. They weren't South Node and Aquarius at a young age would be very mature and objective, very emotionally detached and observant. And this is almost kind of like a prodigy placement as well. It would indicate that you would be a quick learner as a child. And again, you'd almost act more like an adult. You'd almost fit in maybe more with adults, especially with your fire placements. You you learn and adapt very quickly. You especially at a young age, you may have wanted to be, independent. Independence is always a really strong thing for you. You'd want to be you'd be maybe stubborn and want to be independent, want to be like the grown-ups or what have you. Um, and yeah, going back to the Southland and Aquarius, it means that you'd be very academic, very intelligent as a child, and very observant. Um, and with IC and Virgo, you'd be a great learner, very academic, intellectual. These are all really intellectual energies, actually. Um, yeah. So that's interesting. So on the one hand, you may have had some kind of learning disability. It may have been hard to learn, but on the other hand, you're also very academic, intellectual, and very curious, wanting to learn, wanting to read and write. So yeah, maybe you can tell me how that kind of went for you because it's an interesting mix or combination. Definitely some contrast there. But yeah, a lot of intellectual energies at a young age. You were very probably a very smart kid, I would think. Um, okay, and well, let's talk about the nodes since I was just talking about that. So your south node is in Aquarius. I was already talking about that, and it's in the eighth house Aquarius. So okay, so this is a little contradictory as well because this would almost indicate that you were kind of a fly on the wall as a child. You were kind of just super observant, kind of internal. And this is very different from all those fiery energies that I was talking about. So there's, the one side of you, the main side of you, I think, that's very outgoing, very fiery and warm. But as a child, you may have been a little bit more easygoing and more kind of introverted, not as outgoing. But your north node is at 25 degrees Leo, so this indicates that as you mature, it may be difficult. Well, normally with North Node and Leo, it would be difficult for you to be the center of attention. It would be difficult to lead, to initiate. However, you have so many fiery placements that this gives you kind of a good setup. You know, you're not. This isn't. It's not totally foreign to you to be the center of attention and to take the lead. Um, you're kind of good at that already anyway. So, but this just indicates that that's where you're meant to evolve in this life is um, to be more outgoing, to be maybe louder, more active, and ultimately, like I said, it's about leading. It's about being an authority figure of some sort, and um, Leo is a leader. It's one of the most confident, outgoing signs. So, And especially coming from yourself in Aquarius, you're naturally intelligent and observant, and taking into account the entire picture. So you're thinking about, this is the sign of like society and the far future. So these are all kind of big picture themes. So you're naturally good at kind of integrating all of that and thinking holistically. Really wanting to understand the bigger picture, um, and having these kind of lofty ideals. So you're really great at all that, but then you're meant to take that and apply it into a Leo perspective. So take that kind of wisdom and intelligence that you're sort of blessed with, and then apply it. Get out there and get into the world, show people what you can do, and help use it to maybe help others, or lead as an example like Leo does. Okay. And oh, and then it's kind of interesting. You have your midheaven in Pisces, so this would indicate that you are very kind of easygoing in your career. Um, like in public and at work, you're very approachable, and you're very adaptable. You kind of just go with the flow, and people of all walks of life can kind of connect to you. It could also indicate that hmm, midheaven in Pisces, well, it's almost hard to pin down because Pisces is, the last sign. It's like the combination of all the signs. It has so many twists and turns. It's so malleable. So, um, its very nature, you can't really pin it down. So, having your midheaven, which symbolizes your career and reputation in Pisces, you could be good at, almost anything. Like um, Pisces could be very spiritual. So you could have some kind of profession related to like spirituality, or higher consciousness, like asking the bigger questions and such. Um, but it could be anything. Like Pisces can be a performer. You could be a really gifted performer of some type. Like I believe Lady Gaga has Pisces midheaven. I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. Um, so yeah, and part of that is like the costumes of it. Getting lost in like deception sort of, or fantasy. That's all Pisces type of thing. So you could, there's a lot of creativity there, and imagination. So that could be, part of your work as well, something creative, something spiritual. But the list goes on. You can kind of, there's something very malleable about your personality. Like you can kind of do it all. You can kind of do whatever you want. Um, but yeah, taking into account the other placements in your chart, you are very, um, I don't know, you look like a talented individual. You're, intellectual, but also very passionate and creative. So yeah, it's hard to say what you would do professionally because I feel like there's a lot of options. So, that you can, yeah. But you're such a strong-willed person, I would think, with all this fire, that I feel like you would pretty much know what you want to do. You would be a decisive person, maybe. However, this leads me to something that's a little bit contradictory. So you have your Mars in Libra. Mars is in detriment as well. I'm realizing you kind of have a lot of detriment placements. Mars, Mercury, Saturn is in fall. Jupiter's in domicile in Pisces. That's good. It means you're kind of a lucky person. You are idealistic. You have big dreams, big ideas, and you have these kind of streaks of good luck. Maybe streaks of bad luck sometimes, but streaks of good luck as well. So it's almost like things just kind of inexplicably happen that are against the odds, or appear to be that way. But for you, you kind of just make it through. And I think part of this is your attitude. Like you, with just kind of putting together a lot of your astrology, all the fire and the little bit of water here with Jupiter, um, you would have a really interesting life story. Like I feel like you would just kind of get thrown into some really, messy, difficult situations, but you would kind of just trailblaze your way through it and come out the other side. And I think you would generally maintain your innocence, and your, that youthful spirit that you have would be pretty much invincible, I almost want to say. So that's pretty cool. That's kind of endearing for sure. I think it could be hard at times to have those energies, but looking at it from the outside, it seems pretty cool, I guess, or interesting. Um, okay, what else here? I keep meaning to talk about your Mars and Libra, so I'm still going to talk about that. I'm just noticing though that you pretty much lack water. Jupiter is your only water planet, and then you've got ascendant and midheaven in water, which is a little bit different. They're not planets, but that kind of counts. Um, and then you've just got Uranus and Neptune in Aquarius, so those are your only air planets. And then you have no Earth planets at all. So you have a lot of fire, a lot of intensity. Oh, I forgot Mars. So Mars, Uranus, and Neptune are the only air planets. Um, I wonder if it breaks it down. No, it doesn't break it down here. Sorry. But yeah, so you have so much fire. I talked about that at the beginning, so I won't belabor it. But you can also just Google yourself, Google fire element astrology, and you will, a lot of your themes have to do with fire. You're a very fiery person, so yes. And having Moon at the top of your chart, and that's your chart ruler, since um, you have Cancer rising, means that people naturally just feel like they understand you. Even if they don't, people trust you. They feel like they know you, even though you may have not even done anything to earn that trust, or they might not even know you at all. But they just feel familiar with you. They feel like they already know you. So that's pretty cool. Um, you could definitely have some fun with that. Okay, but anyway, Mars and Libra. So I've talked about this recently in another video. Mars and Libra is in detriment, so it's very difficult. Mars has to do with it's the warrior energy in all of us, the hunter energy. It's how we fight for what we want, and it has a lot to do with desire, but it's sort of a planet of masculinity. So it has to do with, sexuality and ambition, and also how do we fight? What do we fight for? What do we fight against? And how do we fight? What's our style in fighting? Also, how do we relate to like conflict or kind of disaster or situations where we need to act instinctively, um, that type of thing. So for you, Mars is in Libra. Libra is kind of backwards. Mars isn't domiciled in Aries. It likes to be in Aries where it's super, quick thinking and impulsive and fiery and confident and strong-willed and self-centered a little bit. But in Libra, Libra is all about Libra doesn't act immediately. It kind of pauses. It likes to take its time and weigh things, and it's very much focused on other people other than itself. It likes to um, it likes to think about other people first and focus on other people or other variables, rather than its own desires or self will, I guess, its own ego. So for you, this is kind of an interesting placement. It means that when you're confronted with someone's being confrontational or aggressive, or there's a situation that is getting out of hand, like it's a crisis or emergency, rather than acting immediately like one might expect you to, you'd be expected in that situation to, act immediately to do something, or maybe to even like panic or something kind of loud and immediate like Aries would do. But you do the opposite. You would naturally just pause and think your way through it. So this is very strong because you would never like panic really. You would always kind of keep your head and think your way through. You would analyze and rationalize until you come up with a solution. So that's excellent. That's almost like a superpower. However, this is a detriment placement. Detriment placements are always misunderstood or generally misunderstood. The reason why it's misunderstood is because when you take your time and think your way through a crisis or confrontational situation, other people may see that and think that you either don't understand, like you're oblivious to the threat or the situation, or they may think you don't care, like you see it and you just aren't doing anything about it, therefore you don't care about it, etc. So they may not understand your process there. Um, what else? Also, pausing and waiting, you may not have those quick reflexes, so you may kind of lose opportunities or chances You may not act right away in certain situations like that. Now, you do have a lot of fire planets though, so those are generally pretty good at being instinctive and just intuitive and, acting the um, right in the moment and being instinctive like that. So you have that to kind of balance things a little bit. But I think when it gets really confrontational or aggressive, you're almost kind of a, a pacifist or a more of a peaceful person. You would avoid confrontation. You don't like confrontation. So that's kind of interesting. You have such a fiery personality on the one side, so you like a little bit of competition. But on the other hand, your Mars and Libra shows that you kind of shy away from confrontation, and yeah, I think I covered that sufficiently. So this is getting long. I want to kind of wrap this up a little bit, but let's talk about your relationships. Okay. Um, hmm. Okay, so for relationships, I look mostly to Venus, Mars, and your descendant. You have Venus in Sagittarius, Mars in Libra, and your descendant in Capricorn. Now, Venus in Sagittarius and Mars in Libra shows that you may be um so jumping back to Mars real quick here. A lot of your sexuality is in Mars, and so again, instead of like directly going after what you want and being super overt about your intentions, like sexually, you would kind of hang back. You would prefer, the other person to initiate maybe. You wouldn't be super outgoing. You'd be more diplomatic, more easygoing, more like civil about things and kind of weighing things before you act. Um, and you may prefer a partner who's kind of a little bit more easygoing like that as well. But generally speaking, it's combining Venus and Sagittarius is very adventurous. So you want, and this ties into all your Sagittarius placements. You want adventure. You want like romance to some extent. Uh, it, with Venus and Sagittarius, you want like a larger than life story to your love. You want some kind of epic drama or adventure story, and you really want adventure with someone that you care about, and when you have someone that you have feelings for, you will act even more Sagittarian around them, which you already do because you have so many placements there. But you'd want that adventure, you'd want that kind of excitement or drama a little bit. And combining Venus and Sagittarius with Mars and Libra, it means that you want someone kind of outgoing, adventurous, someone who doesn't take things so seriously. Um, Kind of. I mean, your descendant is in Capricorn, so I still need to talk about that. Venus and Mars mostly have to do with our desire, so it's kind of what we find attractive in a person. It's not always necessarily what we need in a very long-term situation, but it's more just kind of what we're attracted to, what we find, attractive or sexy, what have you. So for Libra and Sagittarius, you want someone kind of adventurous who doesn't take things so seriously, someone kind of light and easygoing, but also maybe someone a little bit intellectual. So kind of a combination of being really open and adventurous, going out and doing things, but also kind of intellectual, questioning things, learning about things, someone who likes learning, someone who knows a lot of information, maybe that would be kind of interesting for you. Um, but most importantly, what you need in a long-term situation is signified by your descendant in Capricorn. Now so your descendant is the main placement that's in Earth, along with your IC, and you have no Earth place planets at all. So whenever we lack an element in our chart, we are drawn to that like a magnet because we lack it, so we seek it out in others to kind of fulfill that void, to fill that balance. Um, Okay, so this means that you'd be drawn to Capricorn, Taurus, and Virgo people. So maybe people literally with planets in those signs, maybe sun sign in those signs. Um, and what those signs have in common is that they're earthy, grounded. Again, I don't know how much astrology you know, but it's the heaviest element, it's the densest element. So these signs will ground you. You can be a little bit ungrounded at times since you have no Earth planets. So you can, the mundane aspects of reality, like, working and taking out the trash, cleaning, organizing, um, especially just like hard labor or hard work. it's extra boring for you, or extra, there's no, it's more like foreign to you almost. Like you just don't really resonate with that energy all the time. I think you can be very inspired and passionate, and from those feelings can come, that motivation to put in the work for things. But at the same time, that like earth signs are great for doing the things in life that are kind of, boring. They're not really fun, like just kind of I don't know, putting in the work to do things. So that part may be just boring for you. You aren't really set up for that. And you can, yeah, you can get carried away with things. You can overindulge at times. You have so much fiery energy, so you're so caught up in what in your desires and whatever you're thinking in the moment. You can be very impulsive or spontaneous. So you can be ungrounded at times. Is kind of what I'm trying to say. You can feel ungrounded. So you, when you meet someone with a lot of Earth in their chart, it's almost exotic to you because it's something that you don't have. It's someone who's kind of different. They have different skills and weaknesses than you do. And so, and they can be very interested in you as well because they're really great at the practical stuff, being pragmatic and being down to earth and grounded. They've got that covered. But they may not be as good at, having the big ideas like you do or the inspiration or the passion and charisma. So that's where you can get this kind of complementary dynamic. And it does require understanding because, since you lack that element, you may not always understand, people who are very earthy. However, your ascendant descendant axis is water earth. So you view yourself as Cancer. Your identity is there. So you are kind of the emotional one. You're the sensitive one. You want to be very nurturing though, especially with your partner, with a romantic partner, which kind of comes back to what I'm trying to talk about. Um, okay, so this point marks yourself, and then this point marks other people, especially with one-on-one relationships. So the Capricorn is how you see people, it's what you expect from people, it's what you need in a relationship, etc. So when someone matches up with that vibration and either has Capricorn placements or placements that are similar to Capricorn, like especially Virgo or Taurus are pretty similar, um, they would line up with what you need in a relationship, what you want, how you see other people, etc. So you want someone who's kind of the boss in a way, in a relationship. You want someone who's maybe more mature, so someone who could be older, or even if they're not older necessarily, they're maybe more mature or experienced in some way. Um, they have a lot of like sovereignty to them. They're kind of just independent and they take care of themselves, so they bring that to the table. They're kind of the boss. They're in charge. They make sure everything's going to work out, especially in the long term, and they take care of some of those more, practical issues of life. And again, that could definitely be someone with Capricorn placements that would work well for you, but it could also be Virgo or Taurus. Um, Sometimes Scorpio can be kind of similar to Capricorn. Um, but yeah, really any of those Earth energies. And Virgo might work since you have your IC there. You kind of come from that energy. You have a connection there, especially from your early life, early childhood. So yeah, maybe Virgo or Capricorn might work. Taurus, I think, would be difficult because it really doesn't. It's right next to Aries, so that doesn't really mesh well together, and then it's at a odd angle to Sagittarius. So I think Virgo would work pretty well because you have such mutable energy and such intellectual energy. Um, that would work well with all that. Capricorn would work well and kind of, um, especially having your Aries moon, you would kind of understand Capricorns and you'd be able to understand each other to some extent since both of these energies are so independent and ambitious, I guess. And so, yeah. So yeah, especially Virgo or Capricorn, I think would be a really good match for you. But also with some fire and air energy as well. Going back to Venus and fire and Mars and air. Someone who's too earthy would be too boring for you. It would be too, it'd be the same all the time. They'd be just practical all the time. They'd never, live in the moment. So you do want someone who can be fun and be adventurous, like I was saying. So maybe someone with Virgo or Capricorn, and then some fire and air thrown in there. That would be really kind of perfect for you, I think. Water is not as important. You don't have any water placements, so you may be drawn to water placements as well. People who are emotional, sensitive, creative, intuitive, etc. However, you have your ascendant in Cancer, so water signs would be more like friends to you. You wouldn't be, I wouldn't expect a really passionate, dynamic with water signs because you already are that with your ascendant in Cancer. It's like being a negative magnet, and other water signs are like negative magnets. You have a lot in common, but you don't have that magnetic pull. You don't have that attraction. So really, I would expect you to be attracted to earth signs, and then also with a little bit of air or fire mixed in. Water signs would be more like just like friends for you, more so. Okay. I've been talking a lot. I think I covered everything, or at least the bulk of what I want to cover for this. So yeah, very interesting chart, and I think I'm just gonna end this here. So okay, so if you have any questions, please ask me, or I'd be happy to continue our dialogue and delve into anything you'd like me to delve into or clarify. I'd be happy to answer or to help. Um, and if anyone wants a reading, you can email me at manic.mercurian@gmail.com. But thank you all for watching, and thank you for this request to read your chart. And I will see you later. Thanks.